Hello, I'm Jim Nanos.
Jimmy, where'd you get the name?
I believe that I was named after a great uncle on my mom's side that lived out in South Dakota. Had the opportunity to meet that great uncle when I traveled out to South Dakota as a young child and saw the farm that my mom actually grew up on South Dakota. So that's my namesake.
Was it a farm or was it a ranch? Or
It was a true farm, a dairy farm. So I had the opportunity as a young child to milk cows and jump in the hay and all those things. It was a pretty wonderful event.
Did you learn about all the different kinds of cows, or do they all have one type of cow on the
It
farm?
was pretty much one type of cow, huge, stinky. Huge and stinky. Us suburban kids didn't run into many cows when we were young. But
And was your great uncle Jim or James?
he was Uncle Jim.
Uncle Jim.
Yes.
Was he one? Was the only uncle you had on your mother's side?
No, there were a couple uncles that shared the farm at that time. They were elderly, up there in the late 80s and one in the early 90s.
Were they bachelors or were they
They were
married?
bachelors at that time, yeah, and spent the time on the farm.
So how old were you when you made that trip?
I believe I was 8 at the time.
8.
Pretty, I
Okay.
remember it pretty well.
That's beautiful country out there.
Oh, it certainly was.
Is it still?
Last time we were out, I think I was out in 90. I think it was out in 1990, and the country is still pretty spacious and wide, and a lot of families. And my mom still gets a newspaper from a hometown out that way. She gets it weekly.
What's the nearest big town or big city that?
Well, Millbank is the town that she was from, and you know, in that area, there's just clusters of small towns, farming communities.
Are you the only child of your parents, or do you have brothers and sisters?
There were 6 of us all together, a true flock. I have an Irish twin. I'm born in the same year as my older brother Nick, 11 months older than I. So we spend a month each year being the same age. Then Nick and myself, and then followed by 2 more brothers and 2 sisters. So,
And are they all in this area of the country?
oh, absolutely. They're all here on the island, and every family holiday is a festival. Usually
Okay.
between 30 to 40 people, depending on how many college-age nieces and nephews happen to be in town whenever.
How many are there altogether at this point?
There's 12 grandchildren of my parents.
Okay. So your mother, I guess, was the primary influence in your being Jim today.
I believe so.
What else did she call you as a kid?
Well, I mean, she would go through the litany of Nicky, Jimmy, Tommy, Patricia, Ronnie, Renee, whenever she wanted us. One of you, get in here. One of those types of things. But it was interesting because your brother that is younger than I, next one in the family, is 8 years my junior, and my youngest sister is 18 years my junior. So that it was always a riot. Having so many kids spread out and sort of being the older part of the family, going off to college and coming back on the holidays and in the summertime to really catch up and get to know my younger brothers and sisters again.
Are your mother and dad still around?
My dad passed away in 2005, but my mom, who will be 85 this summer, lives at an assisted living in Bohemia, so I will catch her a little bit later today and have a dinner with her.
Terrific.
And I usually see her once or twice a week, and she's
Terrific.
doing pretty well.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Tell me about your current family situation. You, yourself, where you're living, and are you by yourself today? Or?
Well, I went through a divorce back a while ago, but my lady friend Simona and I have been together for now as long as I was married, 17 and a half years. So that makes it interesting. Our kids sort of grew up together. almost like brothers and sisters. They called each other stepbrothers and stepsisters, and got together a lot when we could.
So you are the Nanos bunch.
Yes, we are the clan. Simona was an only child, so when she came into my life and meeting my family, it was overwhelming to say the very least. With so many folks, just getting to meet and try and memorize so many different names was a true challenge for her.
What was the year and the date of your birth, Jim?
I was born December 22nd in 1947.
And your earliest memory would be of what?
Well, I know that we lived in Jamaica, Queens at that time, and I do remember the L. I could hear the train, and we lived pretty close by on Jamaica Avenue, and hearing the train and seeing the train go up overhead, it was a pretty interesting thing to a young kid like myself at that time.
Tell me about your mom. She was an influential person in your life, so
Mhm.
how has she influenced you?
Well, she herself was the daughter of a teacher, and so there was always that influence from my grandma, I think, with respect to having a teacher in the family. And I know I didn't get to see her as much as I always had wanted to, because they lived in the Midwest, in Wisconsin at the time I was growing up. But she was an adventurer. She traveled to the DEW line even as an older woman. That's the distant early warning line in northern Canada, and she participated in a lot of travel and trips herself. So she was a very positive influence.
What was your mother's maiden name?
Heffernan.
Okay, so what nationality would that have been?
She was Irish.
It sounds that way to me.
Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
Yeah. Was she born, your grandmother born in this country, or was she born over there?
Yes, she was born in this country, yes.
So you've got some substantial roots on your mother's side.
Yes.
Was the same true of your father's side?
My dad was born here in the States, but his mother and father, my grandparents, were born in Greece.
Aha. Okay, so it's an Irish-Greek wedding.
Always been an interesting blend. A drinker and a lover. Can't say which is which all the time, but been called several things in my life.
Do you know much about your father's vocational experience, or what he did for a living, or his family, what they did?
Well, my dad was a carpenter, both employed for the Sperry Rand Corporation, and then he worked independently quite a bit as a cabinet maker. Did very, very fine classic work. And then his second career was working at Nassau County Medical Center as a head carpenter at the hospital there.
So the turnpike.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about your mom once again. What did she enjoy doing, Jim?
Well, I tell you, I don't know if there was enjoyment in it, but she was chasing kids so often. That wasn't. I don't think she got to enjoy herself as much as she would have liked to until a lot of us get out of the house. But certainly she participated in things like my dad was part of the American Legion and the VFW, and my mom became an auxiliary member of both of those organizations. So she had time to get out and help with the parades and participate along those lines of fundraising and things like
Well,
that.
if you were born in '47, the war was just over 2 years before, so the organization was a very important part of many people's lives
Yes,
at that
yeah.
point.
Well, interestingly, my dad was in the Army Air Force, and he served on a boat. So, you know,
Okay.
that's always interesting. He was in the 8th Air Force that on the boat that picked up pilots coming back from overseas via the Aleutian Islands. So he spent time at sea basically chopping ice off the boat so it wouldn't sink. So it was an interesting career.
What's the earliest memory you have of your dad?
I guess probably just building things in the shop. For instance, one of the things that my dad developed for my older brother Nick and I were what later became, I guess, Lincoln logs. My dad built and made so many of those out of scrap wood for us, someone had suggested to my dad to get a patent for them. Unfortunately, he never did. Someone else patented the idea and became wealthy. That was one we could have used. But we literally had so many of these Lincoln logs that we could build structures that we could get into as kids, build them in the basement and so on and so forth. So that was an early memory. Later on in years, he helped a lot of other veterans work in the shop, and they made things as fundraisers, anything from mallets to present to different judges that are using them on various benches in Nassau County courts, to constructed flower pots, wooden flower pots, wishing well type pots. So he was very, very handy. I never thought that he got enough money for the things that he did. He created. He was a great...
Did I understand you to say there was 18 years difference between the youngest of your brothers and sisters and the oldest?
That's correct.
You must have learned a lot from in the family.
Oh, absolutely. Changing diapers at a pretty early age. When I came back from college, my sisters really enjoyed my company. I enjoyed their company a lot. I had a motorcycle back in those days, and with the older of my two younger sisters, I would, drop her off at school on the back of the motorcycle. Apparently, she never told her friends that I was actually her brother. So she just got a kick out of having me drop her off and blowing me a kiss and so on and so forth.
Have you ever had a desire to, or have you ever returned to the countries of your origin? Have you ever gone to Greece or to Ireland?
I have been to Greece, yes, but I actually went back to a small town outside of Sparta, where it's my understanding that my grandparents hailed from. Unfortunately, the churches are the places where these records are stored, and the church where we believe that the records of my grandparents' birth had been destroyed in the fire, so I was not able to trace that back, but I was able to get to visit the towns and villages.
If you were to attribute lessons learned, let's say, and put it in a family context, what has being part of your family taught you?
Well, we really help each other out quite a bit. We have a lot of sharing going on. We're together on all of the holidays. And, when there's ups and downs, we're all there together for each other. And in every way, financially, loving, socially.
Has the way of your family and family life changed over the years, Jim? Is it still pretty much what it always was to you?
It's pretty much what it always was. We have a close group of nieces and nephews now. It's really great to see them get together and communicate with each other as we did, of course.
Great example to set,
Yeah, just
them.
A lot of fun,
Were there other adult influences besides your mom and dad that had a formative effect on you as a young person growing up?
Well, I participated in the Allied Nautical Cadets, Sea Scouts. My dad became a member of it, and that's probably one of the places where I had an introduction to the concept of being an educator myself. I took some first aid classes. I took some seamanship classes from some of the other gentlemen who also were veterans at the time, who are participating in the Scouts and helping us learn seamanship. And then as I progressed through the ranks, I became a teacher. In the Sea Scouts, I taught first aid, I taught seamanship, the Blue Jackets manual, so to speak, and so that was, I think, part of what directed me towards being an educator.
You anticipated that question. I was just about to ask you. How old were you when you first knew that maybe this is something that would be fun? I would like to do this.
I was about 12. I'm very sure, because I was already teaching the Blue Jackets manual, Morse code recognition, and so on and so forth, and seamanship, and rules of the road, and so on.
Did you have, if you're lucky, you had some unforgettable teachers. Do you have any that you can remember from your early school years?
Oh, without doubt. Best, perhaps, is my 6th grade teacher, Mr. Giuliano. rough and tumble guy, but really made sure you knew your stuff. I think I modeled some of my technique for things that he instilled in me. Boy, did we know our times tables. Boy, we knew the facts and figures. When he said learn it, you put your time and energy in for a couple of reasons. You really wanted to please him, and also he had a positive authority, real positive authority.
Did you have in the same years, was there a game that you played, that spent a lot of time playing, either an indoor game or an outdoor game that you used to play a lot?
Well, we had a very big backyard, almost an acre, and we had the neighborhood kids were sort of in our backyard. So
Are you talking about in Jamaica?
No, this is when we moved out to North Belmore.
Okay.
Later on, my dad built our house in North Belmore on a nice large piece of property, and on that backyard is where the neighborhood kids came to play. So there was wiffle ball, there was soccer, there was football, everything taking place in the backyard.
When did you move from Jamaica, Jim, out to Belmont?
My dad built the house in and about 1949, 1950. So by about 1952, I believe we had moved in out there.
Well, you're still a very young guy. So
Yeah, sure.
What's an early memory from Belmont? What's one of the earliest memories of living there?
Well, we had a nice piece of property, and when my dad was first building the house, there was just a dirt road on the front of the property, and the woods were kind of thick at the back end of the property, and there was a huge farm. And so I remember having the opportunity to ride bareback around that farm and ride down with some other kids to a swimming hole, literally a swimming hole. And the house was not quite finished that particular summer, so I think the summer between 51 and 52, when we came back to finish up the construction, they had plowed down a lot of the farm and actually put a house on the back side of the property, so that instead of having an access road on both ends of the property, they had sort of closed in our house on the back end of the property. But there also was another house, a neighbor's house, that was facing that pre-existing road. So it turned out that those people were hemmed in. They had to make a 500-foot long driveway to get to the house when they came back that next spring. So it was interesting.
So you moved to Belmore at a time when there was the early boom, the suburban sprawl was taking place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a huge farm, an orchard. I remember just riding through the trees and just being amazed.
Yeah. Do you remember your first paying job?
Yeah, I was a paper boy back then. Had a pretty large route, I think 180 papers, but it paid pretty well. And actually, some of that paper route money later on went into buying my first house. So I had saved pretty well. And
You're a saver.
I did. I put a lot of it away for my college time, but I did break the bank to buy my first house.
Boy, there's a lesson that some of the bankers that might hear this someday could have taken a lesson.
It's interesting that my last car cost more than my first house. I found that to be interesting also.
Yeah. After school, what did you do with your time?
Well, I played sports. I enjoyed soccer, and my major sport was wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And
That carried over
it did.
into
Great
your
opportunity.
future life?
Yeah, great opportunity to give back through coaching and refereeing. A lot of fun.
What were your your favorite subjects in school? Both the most favorite and the least favorite subjects?
Well, obviously, I enjoyed science because I carried it with me into my career. I think probably social studies. I really, at that time, didn't have the concept of why we needed to know so much about the past. I've smartened up.
Okay, so that was one that
Yeah,
you weren't particularly
that wasn't my
interested in.
favorite.
Okay. Did you have a favorite season growing up?
I was a summer person always. I still love summer.
You still do? That hasn't
Absolutely,
changed.
not at
Okay.
all, not at all.
Is there an aroma, Jim, that when you get a whiff of it, it can transport you back to an earlier time in your life?
Well,
that's positive. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I love the smell of flowers, sort of like the apple blossom type things, because they grew up near the orchard, and when they're blooming and when that's wafting through the air, it really triggers a lot of good memories of my youth.
Parents today spend a small fortune on toys for their kids. I'm just wondering if, when you were growing up, at any point in your growing up, did you have a toy that you remember now as we're talking about it?
Well, and again, interestingly, my dad made a lot of wooden toys. I remember this little scooter-like device that made of wood, wooden wheels and the whole works. I remember crashing into a bunch of things around the kitchen and around the house, and don't go in there, you'll knock that over. But
Do you still have it?
haven't seen it in a long time. Don't know if somebody in the family might have it, but
Okay.
there were a lot of things like that. Yeah.
What schools did you attend from beginning all the way through?
Well, in North Belmore, I attended the local schools, a Waltoffer Avenue school. But at that time, the North Belmore School District was growing dramatically. So as they were adding on to the various buildings, myself and my older brother got bused to a number of different schools within the district while they renovated one building or added another wing on. So I went to the Jacob Gunther School and also the Sawmill Avenue Elementary School.
Are they still there? Are they open?
The schools are physically present, but I believe one of them is now an apartment complex.
Uh-huh.
They changed that to apartment complex. I went to a junior high, and that was Jerusalem Avenue Junior High. That building does still exist, but it is a business complex at this time. So that got changed over. And then high school, I went to Wellington C. Mepham in North Belmore. And my first memories of that building were actually going past it in a horse-drawn sleigh. During the winter time, being bundled up and going past the high school I would eventually attend in a horse-drawn sleigh, and just wondering what that big building was at that time.
Did you ever have occasion in your sports activities to compete against your old high school?
Indeed, both as a coach and as a referee, working with some of those kids from the school. My mom recently had an opportunity to see the wall that is down in the basement of the Mepham High School, where my older brother and I's pictures are hanging. She had never had an opportunity to see it, but she went there with a group of senior citizens and was able to get down and see our pictures on the wall. So that was kind of a special treat for her.
And what about post-high school? Where did you go to school after?
I attended Oswego, had a great time up there.
That's a teacher's college.
Teachers College, a part of the State University.
So there was no doubt about your future at that point. You
I
had
was
decided. Yeah.
very, very destined and determined to become a teacher.
Okay.
And I enjoyed my time up at Oswego. It is up on Lake Ontario. It's pretty far up there. It's cold, snowy.
I was going to say that's the snow belt, isn't
Yes,
it?
but summer's nice up there, both days. So, we always have a good time. Got back to visit some college friends and actually stopped by to see my high school wrestling coach 2 summers ago. He's doing very well. And
You got a baccalaureate from that school?
yes, I did.
And where did the master's take place?
I got 2 master's degrees. The first one was at Stony Brook University, and the second one was from Hofstra, and that was a grant. It was actually a free master's degree, and it was wonderful. I got my certification in health education through that second master's, because at that time, in the early 70s, there was no individual certification for middle school science and health teachers. So it enabled us to get a health certification for middle school health teaching.
And the master's at Stony Brook was related to your academic background?
Yes, it was science.
Okay. Jim, of all the things that you can look back upon, having been the teacher that you were for all those years, is there a single source of pride that you feel at having accomplished something?
Well, I tell you, I have been very blessed in my life to be a teacher. I selected something that I thought would be a good career, and I did enjoy every single minute of it. I enjoyed my career in Brentwood. The kids were absolutely spectacular. I hope I was able to give to them, because I know they certainly gave to me in so many different ways. I see a lot of my former students out there having great success. Some of my kids that I coached are coaching themselves or refereeing. I see the kids in different walks of life, whether it's professional or just hard at work in their lives, enjoying themselves, and I've been very blessed.
Speaking of being very blessed, I don't want to shortchange other members of your family. We talked about you in the family, in the hierarchy of family. You've got grandchildren, and we haven't talked about them. So I would like you to tell us about the grandchildren. What are their personalities? What are their interests?
Well, I have one. I just have one, John.
One.
Yes, that's Eric. Okay. He's just turned 2 this past week. This is my stepdaughter's son, Simona's older daughter, and he's 2, and he's a rip and a tear, and just a wonderful kid, and I think very intelligent.
How old is he?
He just turned 2 this past week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We know about that age.
Mm-hmm.
We know about the independence and the just say no element to being 2 years old. But do you or does she recognize any other family traits even at 2?
Well, he's got a pretty good sense of humor. He's very verbal for being just 2, and he knows when he does some funny things. He'll do something and then turn and look to see if you're watching and do it again. Nothing spiteful, but just knowing that he's an imp. And
you're going to watch this someday.
Oh,
Grandpa.
absolutely. He's a very, very smart young man. He knows things like parallelogram and trapezoid and rhombus, and I'm doing some tutoring now, and in some cases he knows a little bit more geometry than some of the students I'm tutoring. So it's a lot of fun because there is a lot of positive input for him.
If you had a choice of a second career other than the one you chose, is there a runner-up that you might have that might have captivated you? Something else that you might have done?
Well, I contemplated for a while possibly Coast Guard.
Okay.
I was very much enjoying the ocean, the sea, time on the beach and boating. So I might have gone with the Coast Guard.
Are there other educators in your family, Jimmy? What does everyone else do? What are the professions or the occupations of people?
My older brother taught for 25 years in Valley Stream. My younger brother Tom works in the environmental field. He's works as an environmental officer for Suffolk County.
What's your older brother's name?
Nick.
Nick, okay.
Okay. Tom works for Suffolk County Water Authority now. My sister Patricia is a dental hygienist. My brother Ron was also a teacher, but he's been the stay-at-home mom for the last few years with his 2 boys. And my youngest sister is a social worker.
Okay.
That's Renee.
So your dad and your mom had a large family, but they also had a large influence in different ways for each of your brothers and sisters doing
Yes.
what they're doing today. What year was it that you came to Brentwood?
I started teaching in Brentwood in 1970. I started at the West Middle School, well, West Junior High back in those days. I taught there for 8 years. Then I was transferred to the high school, to the Ross building essentially. and I spent 12 years teaching at the high school.
Were your certifications such at the time that you could teach both elementary and high school?
Well, interestingly, because I was a junior high school science teacher and I was being moved involuntarily to the high school, there was some question as to whether or not my certifications would carry over. So I represented the Brentwood Teachers Association at a conference on school law that was also attended by George Mann, who was the assistant superintendent at that time. He represented, obviously, the school district. And quite interestingly, I was due to have a hearing with regards to my certification and whether it would carry over. And at that conference, the exact case that would be my case coming up in about a week was discussed, and it indicated to the district that I would absolutely be able to carry my certifications up to the high school. So the meeting was moot, and I was able to move in both with my seniority and my tenure to the high school.
Wonderful.
Still,
How did you come to Brentwood? Why Brentwood?
interestingly, there was a lot of different options. I had a lot of different backgrounds. I had elementary certification as well as some science certification. I was also interested in coaching, and when I went through the checklist, Brentwood met those criteria and met those needs.
Okay.
And I saw that that was a community that was developing. I saw that there was I felt and saw that there was going to be a lot of growth in the district, and I felt it was a good place for me.
What other communities had you checked out, or what other applications had you put in?
Several places on the island. I was also like Half Hollow Hills, and I was also offered a job in Oswego itself, where I was an undergraduate. They were going to be building a new high school at that time. But I also had some other influences. I was seeing a young lady at that time who would eventually become my wife. So there was some draw to get me back to the island too.
As Connie Chung once said, between you and I, Jim, did you ever regret that decision of coming to Brentwood?
Not at all. I've really enjoyed myself all the time. Had great experiences. The kids have just been great. I should say great to me. They've given me so much through the years.
Sure.
One of the things that I did with the kids way back when with another fellow teacher, Jerry Hollings, we did some spelunking, cave exploration, and we did some mountain climbing and taught the kids belay technique and rappelling through sort of an adventure club, and a lot of kids.
Where did you do that? Upstate?
We did that around the Shawangunk Range, the Mahonk House, and up there, and those were times. So enjoyed those kids. A lot of those are still in contact with me. And through the years, I lived in Brentwood. So it was great. The kids they watched my house. I mean, there was never a problem with my house. It was the greatest thing. Kids would come by and knock on the door and say, "You want to go for a run?" Or I actually went on many bike cruises with them. We did cleanup cruises out to Montauk from Brentwood, cleaned up the highway on the way, and then we camped out at Heather Hills at the hostel there. And so we were able to bike out and back, and those were great adventures.
Not only are they adventures, that they're bonding opportunities for kids with teachers.
As also interesting, my younger brothers and some of my younger sisters became friends with some of my students. They were the same age. And my brothers and sisters still communicate with a lot of those kids that were in my classes back then. So they're still friends, and they've gone to weddings and so on and so forth too. So it goes back.
Who was the first person, Jim, that you met when you came to Brentwood? George Mann, you said
Yep.
George Mann was the first. But once you came here, did you have to go through an interview?
Actually, I was interviewed by Jeff Dwyer up at Oswego, and that's the reason I actually got the job, I believe.
Okay, so they were recruiting
They
up
were
at
recruiting up in Oswego. At that time, I was actually filling in for my master teacher up in outside of Oswego in a small town called Hannibal. My master teacher had a heart attack, and so I took over for the last portion of my senior year. And I was offered a job at that location, but of course Vietnam was going on at that time, and they weren't going to give anybody any deferrals, deferments rather, and so the option to come to Long Island was better for me in the long run.
Okay. Do you remember any of the questions that might have been asked at the time that Jeff Dwyer talked to you up there?
Some things about how to handle kids.
Okay.
I remember saying, well, calm the situation down. Let everybody simmer down a little bit. Come back and then open some doors of communication. Not unlike what it's like trying to break up a fight between your brothers and sisters. That's sort of par for the course. And just, what my goals would be as far as a teacher, was I interested in pursuing a higher education and doing coursework along those lines.
At that point, being new to the classroom, and you said you began in the middle school or in the junior high, what did you hope to achieve your first year? Do you remember having a particular goal in mind, or did you, your objective, has it changed over the years from the first year?
Well, I knew that I wanted to get some facts and figures out to the kids, but I also felt that it was important to have a practical application of science, to give the kids some uses for the things that I was going to teach them, whether it was around the house or just how to drive, look out for ice on the road, just some things that would be practical applications of science in their daily lives, make it more meaningful, make it more useful.
How did Brentwood, as you remember it from 1970, change in your eyes to the time when you left the classroom?
Well, I tell you, we got bigger. I think there was a lot more going on, a lot more activities for the kids, both positive and negative. Sometimes the kids, I found them spreading themselves out too thin, being involved in a lot of things that took away from their academics. I encouraged them to make some options, make some positive choices, so that they could focus and do the best that they needed to do to have the greatest amount of success, and to look ahead to what their future might bring. I'm very happy that teachers did that for me in high school, and I think I always appreciated it and hoped that I could do that for students that I taught.
Did you enjoy teaching at the high school more, as it turned out, than you did at the middle school level, or?
Well, I tell you, I enjoyed both. I mean, I
Okay.
started at the junior high, I got to the high school, and then, of course, I finished my career back at the North Middle School from about 1991 to finish up, 1990 up to finishing. So I enjoyed the time everywhere. At the high school level, I had Regents classes. I had non-Regents classes. I taught physical science, I taught biology, I taught earth science. I was very pleased to have a high passing ratio of students on the Regents, very proud of that, but also I was proud of the fact of being able to get through, I think, to a lot of kids in those non-Regents classes and have the science be pertinent once again.
I can remember that you were always regarded as one of the students' favorite teachers.
Well, I enjoyed it.
Yes.
I was very honored in 1988 to be High School Teacher of the Year. That was one of the best memories in my career, just having that honor presented by the students, and that was wonderful. But I also had opportunities to work with kids on the Science Olympiad, another fun thing to do. And again, I saw something going on with a lot of the kids, I think, and I had to find a way to get involved. And that we lost a couple of great students to some drinking and driving. And that got me involved, especially through one family, the Plant family, that lost their daughter in a drinking, driving catastrophe. And I got myself involved and became the supervisor to SADD, Students Against Drunk Driving, and that was a highlight of my career also, to, I think, be effective and to hear the feedback from parents that they were so happy their kids were involved in it. So it's been great.
Who do you remember working with the first couple of years, Jim? Some of the people are with you even at the end of your career, and some of those people have left way before you or moved on to other places. Who did you work with the first year?
Well, I tell you, somebody who I actually always thought was great was Sam Weissman, a guy that came out of industry and became a teacher later on in life. He had a lot of phrases, catchphrases that maybe not, you really can't put them in an interview, but there was a lot of good catchphrases. And I actually emceed his retirement, I think, my first year as a teacher. I thought so very much of him that I was able to MC his retirement, and he said that he had a 50-cent piece that he claimed was the first one he made, and he left it to me. So still have it for sure. But he said, you know, you got to work for goals, and you got to set them and then aim for them. And that was one of the things.
A perfect segue to the next question. But I don't want to stop you.
No, just, you know, I worked with people like Dick Philman and Tony LaScala, Eddie Hardman, Ron Ioka, guys in the department really broke me in pretty well. That was a great thing. When I moved to high school, because I had my seniority and kept my tenure, I didn't have to sing the Schaefer song like most people had to. For those of you that aren't aware of that, the Schaefer song was a TV commercial where the newest member of the workforce had to stand up at a table and sing the song, which we had a lot of our new employees in the science department had to do that in various parties and so on and so forth. And then, of course, moving on to the North Middle School, it was pretty well established, but also some great people over there too to rub elbows with. Barbara Festa helping me out, and just, you know, good.
You had great camaraderie in the science department.
Oh yes.
There was a cohesive support system for people in the department.
They were great.
Was it that way when you left? Is it still the same way?
I believe so. The best thing about the science department, I think, back in those days, is in the Ross building, the second floor was just science. So if anybody came drifting up the stairs on one end of the hall or the other, it was all science department. What are you doing here? Where are you going? So it was easy to keep tabs and keep things under a good reins all the way up there. Kids knew not to drift through that section, because it was all the science teachers up there that were paying attention to what was going on.
You started to talk before about the importance of having a sense of purpose, of a goal, with that 50-cent piece that you still have. I wanted to ask you if you could define how you defined your purpose, Jim. Besides the job description that you had and the expectations of the subject matter, etc., the state, you know, has on everybody, how did you look at the reason for you coming in to work in the morning? What was your purpose every day?
Well, we actually had something that was, I thought, pretty great. We had an opportunity to take some classes, and Bobby Frankel was part of it, and it was a humanistic education class that really gave us all some more insights into how to deal with people as people, whether they were students or not students, but just being able to deal on a very humane aspect and really treat people the way you wanted to be treated, and give the kids a real opportunity, not putting kids in a corner, not backing them into a situation where it was one thing or the other, giving them an opportunity to explore, to become the best that they could be at what they could do best, and finding that for as many students as you possibly could.
Yes.
So sometimes it was taking the student that may not have been the top of the class, but giving that person some responsibility to give them importance for their life and importance to the class. And
Yes.
so just having that ability, it was fun to do with the kids and have them appreciate it.
You've mentioned the continuing connections you have with your former colleagues, but you mentioned something about a Romeo organization. Tell me about that.
Retired old man eating out, his Romeo. It's not my term per se, but it's in use around the town. Do get together with a bunch of retirees, many of whom are former Brentwood teachers. We hike, we do a little biking, we do some kayaking, which I've really enjoyed lately, and had an opportunity to get out quite a bit. So we do get out and do some hiking out on the east end of the island, and splash around when we can.
You were active in the Brentwood Teachers Association, but you were very active in the union at one point or another, weren't you?
Yes, I was chief delegate and member of the executive council for a number of years.
What was one of the most satisfying outcomes of that effort
Well,
on your part?
I think that, again, in our district, we have a great group of very professional people. And it's been a pleasure to rub shoulders with them through all the years and learn a lot from other people. Perhaps that was one of the best things that you can think of, because there are so many people that have developed so many concepts and lessons that were willing to share. You know, they helped me with my repertoire of activities and being able to give that back. And just looking back now and having a number of former students that are back teaching in various classrooms. I think back to Lori Yedwabnik, who came back to teach biology in the room I taught her biology in. So that was kind of neat. And using the book by Rachel Carson, Silent Spring, as an important reading for her students, as I did for her. So, you know, that's the kind of follow-up that really makes your heart warm.
You bet. There are people who will argue that unions have outlived their usefulness, that unions have changed, that they're not needed anymore. What would you say to a critic of the union movement today?
Well, I think that unions are very important. You have to have a baseline. You have to have some establishment that allows people to mature. I know that in years before unions that a lot of times jobs were maybe due to favoritism, people were let go when somebody else's relative might have come into a position. So it just assured that things were fair. It also gained us a fair wage. Never sad about that. I know I spent a lot of time in the classroom and outside of the classroom. People maybe don't think about the time that teachers spend outside of the classroom doing all the things that we do. When I think back to what I made as a salary to my first year as a teacher, taking home less than $250 for 2 weeks speaks to that point. And that, well, with the economic times, you still could do pretty well. You weren't living high on the hog, but you could still do fairly well to support yourself and your family. So I think, like, you know, fair labor laws, making sure that things were done right and appropriately in all cases.
Have you ever walked into your classroom and been afraid to go to work?
Never. I enjoyed every day. You know, I couldn't make it, you know, blow up or turn green every single day, but there was always that opportunity to, you know, try and get a little awe. Okay, have the kids take a look at something and learn something, and I loved experimentation and having the kids discover, find the process out and participate and get their hands dirty and get in there and figure out what was supposed to happen.
You're a guy with a very even personality. You've got a good sense of humor, but I'm sure there are things that really get you going. What makes you angry? And in terms of your professional involvement, what is it that used to get under your skin?
Well, sometimes I think that maybe administration might keep you in meetings that didn't necessarily, I would rather have spent more time with my kids after school than attend a particular meeting that may not have had pertinence to things that I was doing. Would have liked to have had more opportunities to have chances to get kids out. There was some drawbacks to being able to take field trips. There were some drawbacks to be able to, later on, we couldn't possibly take kids spelunking and mountain climbing due to issues of insurance, things like that. Again, understandably in some cases, but it sort of held you back in some cases.
I'm going to pick up the pace because I don't want to run out of tape. I want to get all these answered if we can.
Okay.
What date did you officially retire?
I guess it's June 30th, 2007.
Okay. The total number of years in it been?
I had 37 years teaching in the Brentwood schools.
Did you have second jobs during any of those years?
Usually. I taught night school. I was always a wrestling referee or soccer referee. Did tutoring. I did the home teaching also. I had a tree business for a good long time period there. Wound up doing a lot of tree work for faculty. People never had to advertise. So that kept me busy, and you know.
What was your reason for leaving? Why did you retire?
I think time was right. My kids were grown, finished with college. I was at a point in life where sort of the college loans were paid off. Luckily, my kids had scholarships, so they weren't too great, so that was helpful. I think that it was just the right time. I just sensed that it was the right time. Enjoyed what I was doing, but time to step out.
If you had it to do over again, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I am enjoying retirement immensely. I get up at 8:03 every day because some wise person said never get up before first period starts. So, 8:03, don't need to set the alarm. I'm right there. And so it's a beautiful thing.
There was a lot of stuff that was fun. What was the most fun part of teaching?
Well, I think when I was coaching, I had the opportunity to have my kids wrestle a couple of my brothers' teams, both as wrestlers themselves and as coaches. So on several occasions when my teams wrestled either against my younger brothers, I didn't tell my own kids that the coach across the mat there was my brother until we got to mat side, and then I happened to mention, hey guys, could we do a special job on this other team today? Because you see that guy over there? That's my brother. Can we kick some butt? So we did that, and then of course my younger brother Ron, the first time he ever had a chance to wrestle, he came out with his team to Brentwood, and those kids were real great wrestlers. And his team from North Belmore came into the locker room, and they were sort of kidding around and joking around, and wave hi Jim, and then I turned to the next aisle where my wrestlers were lined up in military fashion. They always shave their heads. I said, gentlemen, are you ready for weigh-in? They went, yes, sir. And the kids from Belmore peeked around the corner and saw all these kids standing there like this. My brother wrestled Al Baravecchio that day, a name pretty tough in wrestling, and Al asked me, Coach, he's your brother, what should I do? I said, wrestle! He dispatched my brother Ron in just a few seconds, put him to sleep pretty quickly there with a pin, but they became fast friends, and my brother Ron would not cry. He said, can I come out and work out with you guys? And they did, and worked out weekend after weekend with my guys.
What do you miss the most, Jim?
Well, I'm lucky because I'm doing some tutoring now, so I'm not away from that aspect of it all. So I do miss the kids. I just got a fantastic email from a young lady that sort of is special to me. She said, her name is, I can't think, Hamlani. I'll have to. Okay, Mawish Hamlani. She said, Mr. Nanos, I wish you were still teaching, because do you remember that back when you were teaching, you used to take a ring stand, and at this time of the year, you would put the names of various people on these ring stands in the positions where they used to sit. And Mr. Nanos, I'm this year's valedictorian. So she said, you know, I wish you were there to put my name on my seat there. So I stopped back about a week ago, and I went into the young man that took over, and I said, would you mind putting Moish Hamlani's name on a ring stand? I had it already made up, and put it in place, and here's where the valedictorian sit, and here's where the salutatorian sat, and number 3 is sitting here, and number 4 sat there, and number 7 sat here, and number 9 sat there. And then what was fun doing is adding up their scholarship money, and putting their scholarship money there, and encouraging those kids in the future to get to that position in the high school, do their very best, but try and, you know, struggle to get there.
Great story.
And it was fun. And
is there anything that you would like to have accomplished, Jim, that you didn't get to or you couldn't?
I would say no.
No.
I really had a great time. I enjoyed myself.
Did you have a favorite year of the whole?
Well, when I was Teacher of the Year in 1988, I think that was very much a peak. Kids like Deneen Pashukas, Lori Duty, those kids were just great. We had many proclamations from the town of Islip. I got a very nice proclamation myself from Bob Anastas, who was the founder of SADD, for the work that the kids did, and it was, you know, it all came from the kids, but it was nice that he presented it to me in care of them. So,
what haven't we talked about? What have we left out? Is
well,
there anything?
I just think one of the things, the ages at the high school was our split session years. That was an interesting time to be a high school teacher. As the district grew and the high school was growing, we had some temporary buildings, and we were just growing in size. It's even gone to such a greater extent today. But we were on split sessions, so I was in the afternoon session, literally teaching from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. And doing some coaching in the morning, and having to take a good shower before I got to my classes and try and fit in lunch. Those were interesting years, and I remember yelling and screaming that I wanted to get into the morning session, and I was told, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. So they placated me and put me in the morning session, which was great because the new building didn't open for 3 years. So I got 3 years in the morning session I might not have had if I didn't yell and scream enough.
Complete the sentence or the phrase. Brentwood teachers are?
Great people, great friends, and it's been a pleasure working with all of you through so many years.
And to complete the phrase, Brentwood students are?
The best in the world. We have kids that were as highly qualified as students anywhere on the planet, anywhere in the United States. And we have kids that maybe didn't have as much innate ability, but they worked hard to be successful at all levels.
Jim Nanos, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being a part of this. We can't thank you enough for sharing your experience.
I thank you for having me.